Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the measures of center of a data set. There are three measures of center that we try to use, which are mean, median, and mode. And they summarize a data set just based on what it might be that we're trying to achieve. So we'll talk a little bit about that along the way and what the uses for them are. Now, the first is the mean, and this is usually called the true average, okay? And the reason that it's the true average, it's because it's the arithmetic average. So we actually consider all the numbers and how to find the central number behind it all. Now, for a mean, the way that we calculate this is to add all of our values together and then divide that by the number of values in the set. Okay, so for this set here, we have 1, 7, 6, 3, and 3. So we're going to add those those 5 together and then divide that by 5. Now, if I add that together, I'm going to get 20 and divide that by 5 gives me 4, okay? So sometimes your mean might not even be present in your data set, but if I take into account all the numbers in that data set, that gives me that true average of the set. The second measure of center that we have is median, and the median is your middle number, right? But to get that middle number, you first have to order your data from lowest to highest, okay? So if you're ever trying to find all three of your measures of center, it's good to just order your data. Now, if I do order this data here, 5 is going to be my lowest value, followed by 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 15, okay? Now we want to find the number that nicely splits this in half. And I've got 7 numbers here. And so if I were to kind of take out this 11 here, I would end up with 3 numbers on either side. So in this case, my median is equal to 11. Now, if you have an even amount of numbers in a data set, then that makes it a little bit trickier to calculate your median. And we'll see an example of that a little bit later. But all you do is then find the mean value of the 2 middle numbers instead. Okay, so calculating our mean is helpful, not just in that context of calculating the mean, but also for the median if we need to. Our third measure of center is the mode, which is usually the easiest to find. And this is just your most common value, right? So the most common value in your set, and sometimes you're going to have some which have more than one mode, right? So for example, if we have 2 modes, then that set is called bimodal. Now, when it comes to finding your mode, you don't have to order your data, but it usually does make it a bit handy to group numbers together. You're just going to look for something that's most common. Okay, so I'm going to start by ordering this data here. And in doing so, hopefully it makes it a bit easier to find my mode. Okay, in doing this, I can see that my most common is 3, which is nowhere near the median or the mean for this data set. Now, there are some instances in which we'd want to use the mode. For example, if you were to own a restaurant and you wanted to look at the most common table size you had, you might have an average of 5 people per table, but your mode might actually be 2 people per table instead, because most people just come with a friend, right? And so finding the mode of a data set can be beneficial to things like businesses for your most common occurrence of something. Now, the last thing that we do need to consider in a data set is what we call an outlier. Until you learn about things like upper and lower fences, which is a little bit later down the track, you kind of just have to eye off if there are any outliers. And all an outlier is a data point that's significantly greater or smaller than the rest of the data, right? So sometimes you kind of play that by ear, but there is a formula which you will learn in later years. Now, to find our outliers, once again, take that moment just to reorder your data. It just makes it a lot easier. If you do have an outlier, sometimes they tend to be quite obvious. And in this case, we can see that 29 is really far off the rest of these numbers. We have 3, 5, and 7 are quite close together, and so are 9, 12, and 13, and then we have 29. So 29 in this case is the outlier, and you're not always going to have outliers, okay? So sometimes you do have to play that one by ear until you learn how to calculate them. Now, an outlier can really affect things like your mean, given that that's your numerical average, but things like your median and mode aren't as badly affected, okay? Because your median's always going to be close to, well, always in the middle of your numbers. If I take out the outlier, your median's still going to be quite close to there. Whereas your mode as well, if you have multiple of an outlier, it's not really an outlier anymore because it's got a buddy, right? And so your mode is also usually unaffected, because if I take out that 29, the rest of them are still only occurring once, okay? So it's not going to affect the other numbers in your set. Now feel free to pause the video here and just have a go at this by yourself, but we're going to find the mean, median, and mode. And I am going to start off by reordering this data, okay? So to get my my mean, I'm going to add all of these together. So 2 plus 3, so on, so on. And I'm going to divide all of that by 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, right? Because I've got 8 things in my data set. If I add these together, I'm going to end up with 40 over 8, which is 5, right? So in this case, we do end up with our mean also being in our data set. Now for median, I'm going to go looking for my middle number. Now in this case, I actually have 2 middle numbers that split this nicely in half, right? Because if I were to just take out that 5, I have 3 numbers on the right and 4 on the left. If I take out just the 3, I have the opposite. So I have to consider both of them to even out those 2 sides. Now what I do is I find the average of those 2, and that should not be over 8, that should just be over 2. And that's going to be equal to 4. Okay, so my median in this case is 4. And then the very last thing we're going to look for is our mode, and we're just looking for the most common, which in this case we have 3 3s. Okay, so that's how we're calculating mean, median, and mode for any data set. Now the last example I would like to walk you through today just involves a little bit of algebra. Okay, so I'm trying to find the missing number x here, and I've been told that their mean is 4. Okay, the other piece of information that we've been given is that this set is bimodal. Okay, so what that means is I have 2 modes, which tells me that one of these numbers needs to be 1, 7, or 3, right? Because if it's 5, that actually stops the set from being bimodal. Now we've been told our mean is 4, and I know that I can get that by adding together all of these numbers here and then dividing that by 6, right? So going back to our algebra, we're going to start by multiplying by 6, and I end up with 24 is equal to all of that added together. And if I collect my like terms, so if I add 5, 1, 7, 3, and 5 together, I'm going to end up with 20 plus x, right? And then we're just subtracting 20 from both. Oh, sorry, that won't be 20. 5 plus 1, 6, 13, 16, 21. Apologies. Good work if you did pick up on that. But that will actually be 21. And so if I subtract 21 from both sides, I end up with 3 is equal to x, which makes this set bimodal as well, because we have a pair of 5s and a pair of 3s.